She was supposed to wear white, smile sweetly, and say yes. Instead, she stole a pistol, ran through the dust in one boot, and kept the wedding dress as proof she didn't belong to anyone. And when her lungs burned and the border was still too far, she found him. A man with one eye, no name, and a rifle that hadn't been fired in years. He didn't ask who she was, didn't ask what she'd done. He just nodded to the open trail and said, "You can keep running, or you can sit a while." She thought he was broken, but he was just done chasing the wrong things. The dust on her hem wasn't from any road. It was from all the places she wasn't supposed to be. Saltbrush trails, stream beds that barely whispered, forgotten paths where only lizards and regrets traveled. Her name was Mercy Talbot, which was cruel, given how little mercy the world had shown her. She'd stolen the dress she wore, not from a store, from a future that had already been decided for her. The corset laces were torn, one glove missing, her wedding veil still pinned in place like a joke told too long. She was running, not fast anymore, just steady, like someone who'd lost count of how far was far enough. And that's when she saw him, a man, sitting in the shade of a crooked cedar that hadn't bloomed since Grant was president. One leg stretched out, one boot worn through, a rifle across his lap that looked older than sin, and a wide-brimmed hat casting shade across a face made of leather, bone, and years. He didn't move when she approached, didn't speak when she stopped 10 paces away. Just looked up with his one good eye. The other was covered by a dull brown patch, cracked at the seams. Mercy opened her mouth to say something, anything. He beat her to it. "You running from a man or from the mirror?" She blinked. He added, "Don't worry. Same answer most days." She didn't answer, but she didn't turn either. He pulled a canteen from his side and poured a slow stream of water into a battered tin bowl. His horse, tied to the tree behind him, slurped without complaint. Mercy finally stepped closer, voice low and flat. "You always talk this much?" "Only to people who haven't earned silence yet," she frowned. "What's your name?" He didn't look up. "Haven't used it in 6 years," he said. She folded her arms. "What do they call you now?" He tipped his head, finally meeting her eyes. "Around here? Not a damn thing. I don't let them." There was no threat in his tone, just absence, the kind that scared you more than a loaded gun. She sat, not beside him, but not far. Her muscles ached. Her mouth was dry, her throat full of things she hadn't cried yet. "I was supposed to be married an hour ago," she said. The man didn't flinch. She glanced sideways. "You don't look surprised." "I've seen too many girls in white walking into graves." "That what you think marriage is?" He turned toward her. "Depends on the groom." She exhaled. His name was Royce Benedict. Big name, big boots, big hands. The weight of his stillness said more than a gun ever could. "So big," she whispered, "that you never saw how small you were getting until you couldn't breathe inside your own bones." The heat curled around them, buzzing flies, a vulture spinning wide overhead. He tossed her a small leather pouch. She caught it, opened, jerky and one square of sugar. Mercy blinked. "You feeding me now?" He shrugged. "Be a shame if you died before I figured out whether you're worth listening to." She took a bite, chewed slow. "You always this generous?" "I'm retired," he said. "Got nothing left to spend but time." "Retired from what?" "Being someone worse." As the sun dropped lower, Mercy started undoing her veil. The pins tangled in her hair. She winced, tore one out too fast and hissed. The man stood, reached for a knife. She froze, but he didn't come at her. He walked behind her, lifted the back of her veil, and in 3 smooth motions, cut it free from the knot at the base of her neck. No comment, no lingering, just silence and usefulness. He walked back to the tree, sat down, whittled the knife clean with a scrap of cloth. She touched the back of her head. "Thanks," she muttered. "Didn't do it for you," he said. Then after a beat, "Did it for the woman who comes after you." Maybe she won't need to wear one. That night they built a small fire between them. No tents, just dirt and stars. She asked, "You sleep with your rifle loaded?" "Always." Ever used it on a woman? He didn't answer. She leaned back. Guess I'll take that as a no. He looked at her. Don't take things that ain't offered. She rolled onto her side, facing the dark. Then offer me your name. He didn't answer for a while. Then finally, Malachi Voss. She repeated it under her breath, like a spell. All right then, Malachi. Let's try not to die tonight. Dawn came blood orange, and with it, a trail of hoof prints. Malachi was already awake, crouched over the fire, blade in one hand, coffee boiling in the other. Company coming, he said. Mercy stood, squinting. How far? He poured a tin cup, handed it to her. Too far for now? Close enough by sundown. She drank, burned her tongue, didn't complain. Who are they? He asked. She set the cup down. My father's men, or Royce's. Hard to tell the difference. Malachi stirred the fire. You plan on stopping? Mercy looked toward the hills, then back to the stranger with one eye and too much silence. She shook her head. No. The bundle she carried was wrapped in pale blue cloth, tied twice with a shoelace, and once with a length of bridal ribbon that hadn't seen a knot worth keeping. Mercy Talbot didn't look at it much. Didn't need to. She knew exactly what was inside. A dress. Heavy silk. Lace stitched by hands that had never sewn anything in sorrow. Pearls lining the sleeves like promises. A bodice too tight for breathing and too stiff for running. The dress she was meant to wear. The dress she never would. It had cost more than most men's lives were worth in that part of the world. Royce Benedict had ordered it from San Francisco. Told the whole town about it. Let folks picture him beside the perfect woman. Polished, obedient, untroubled. Instead, he got blood on his boots and dust in his reputation. And Mercy? She got a name that people whispered more than spoke. By mid-morning, she and Malachi had made it 6 miles south. No trail, just instinct and the rhythm of not wanting to be found. He rode ahead, slow and quiet, the reins in one hand, his other always too near the butt of his rifle. Mercy walked beside his horse until her feet begged for rest. Then she'd ride for a while, one leg crooked awkwardly beneath her, still refusing to ask for help. She didn't ask him where they were going. He didn't ask her where she'd come from. But when she dropped the dress bundle at their second camp, letting it thump against the dirt like a forgotten child, Malachi looked up from where he was breaking wood and said, You gonna burn it? She shook her head. He raised a brow. Then why carry it? She didn't answer right away. Finally, because it reminds me of who they wanted me to be, and who I didn't become. They camped that night near a dry creek bed, the rocks cool and round from storms long gone. Malachi set snares. Mercy gathered kindling. They didn't speak much, but the silence wasn't empty. It was cautious, earned, worn in like boots that had been mended more than once but still fit. After dinner, jerky and beans, Malachi pulled out a worn map and unfolded it across a flat stone. Mercy sat across from him, elbows on her knees. You ever been to the border? He asked. Almost. Planning to cross? Maybe. He tapped the map. Here's where the land starts changing. Fewer trees, fewer fences, more men who ask the wrong questions. She stared at the map. I've met enough of those already. He folded the paper. Then you'll fit in just fine. Near midnight, she woke to the sound of hooves. Not close, but not far enough. Malachi already had his rifle in hand, crouched at the edge of the firelight. Her silence wasn't surrender, just calculation. Just moved behind him, silent as smoke. They've split up, he said quietly. Riders. 3, maybe 4. Still half a mile. Looking? No doubt. She swallowed. What do we do? He turned his head slightly. That depends. On what? On whether you want to run forever or fight once. They broke camp at first light. No fire, no breakfast. Just wind and caution. The dress stayed in her arms. She didn't strap it to the horse. Didn't leave it behind. Malachi watched her with a side glance. You know that thing's slowing you down. She nodded. I do. He didn't argue. Didn't offer to carry it. She wouldn't have let him. By afternoon, they reached a ridgeline overlooking a narrow basin. Trees like scorched bones. A dry stream cutting the earth like a scar. Malachi stopped. Pointed. There. We make our stand there if it comes to it. You think they'll follow? I would. Mercy adjusted the strap on her shoulder. Then they will. He looked at her. You scared? She met his gaze. Yes, she said, but not of dying. That evening she set the dress on a flat stone, untied it, unfolded it. It shimmered in the dying light, pure white, touched with dust and road blood. Still beautiful, still cursed. Malachi sat nearby, sharpening a knife. Never seen a woman carry her own ghost before, he muttered. Mercy stared at the fabric. I didn't run because of the wedding, she said. He didn't interrupt. I ran because they all thought I was lucky, to be chosen, to be owned. She looked up, eyes steady. And the more they praised him, the more I hated the way I disappeared inside their approval. Malachi nodded slowly. I know that feeling, he said. Then after a pause, I didn't get this patch in war. I got it in a card game. Over a lie. Mercy tilted her head. Did you lie? No, he said. I just didn't let someone else win. That night she slept curled next to the dress, the cloth like memory against her shoulder, and in the dark Malachi kept watch. Not because he didn't trust her, but because he did. Somewhere in the hills a coyote cried. She stirred. He moved closer, not to touch, just to be near. The fire hissed, the stars watched. And so did he. He didn't watch her like other men did. There was no hunger in it, no claim. Only a stillness that said, I see you, but I won't take you. And that, more than anything, was what unsettled her. Mercy had lived her whole life being looked at like something owed, something bought, then shaped. Pretty but not too opinionated. Sharp but only if it served someone else. But Malachi Voss watched like he was waiting to see what she would do, not what she would become for him. And he never used both sides of his face, only the left. Only the eye that still moved beneath sun-worn skin and long dark lashes. The right was hidden, closed, covered, shut away behind a strip of cracked leather, laced with what looked like thread from a boot sole. The first time she asked, he didn't answer. The second time he did. They had made camp near a low rise just east of a dry arroyo. The ground was rocky, the brush short and mean, but it gave them visibility in all directions. The kind of place a man like Malachi would choose, not for comfort, but for control. Mercy laid her bedroll beneath a split boulder. The dress, as always, folded neatly beside her like a reminder of a life she'd stepped out of, but hadn't quite stopped caring. Malachi sat by the fire, skin lit orange by the flame, a strip of bacon sizzling in his tin pan. She watched him for a while, then asked, Was it a fight? He didn't look at her. What? Your eye. He turned the bacon once, slow. The fat popped. I've been in fight, he said, but that one wasn't fair. You lose? He glanced at her. Depends what you count as losing. She waited. He didn't continue. She leaned back against the rock. You always this good at avoiding real answers? I'm real good at earning them first. They ate in silence. Bacon, cold beans, a crust of cornbread he'd traded for at the last town. She offered none of her story. He asked for none. But when she lay down for the night, pulling her coat up over her chest, she felt the weight of his eye on her, not like a threat, but like a door left slightly ajar. And sometime after midnight, she heard him shift his bedroll closer to hers. Not enough to start rumors, just enough that if a bullet flew, he'd be between her and its aim. The next morning, she found a red bandana hanging from the branch of a mesquite tree 20 yards east. Folded, tied loose, stained at one edge. She froze when she saw it. Malachi did too. He walked up behind her, silent as wind. Tracker's sign, he said. How old? He crouched, ran 2 fingers over a rock, brushed aside dust, found a boot print. Fresh, less than a day, maybe less than 6 hours. Yours? He looked up at her. If it was mine, I wouldn't be worried. They broke camp fast. No fire, no trail. They followed dry creek beds, let the horse walk through shallow water when they found it, wiped their boot prints with branches. By noon, they were tucked into a dead gulch with steep walls and narrow sky, resting in shade so thin it barely cooled their skin. Malachi sat sharpening a blade across his knee, Mercy watched his hands. You ever kill someone who wasn't trying to kill you first? She asked. He paused, looked up. His voice was dry. Why? Because I want to know if you're still worth walking beside. He set the knife down. I killed a man in El Paso who looked at me like I was the man who hurt his wife. Were you? No. But you let him believe it? I didn't explain in time. She studied him, and then finally she nodded. Still worth it. They kept moving through the hills for 2 more days. She learned how to read his silence like a second language. When he moved his shoulder, it meant danger. When he rubbed his thumb along the barrel of his rifle, it meant he was thinking about the past. When he adjusted the tilt of his hat without touching it, it meant he'd decided something and wasn't going to tell her what. She started mimicking him, not out of imitation, out of instinct. And once, when they crested a ridge and saw buzzards circling in the far-off sky, she said, "Somebody else didn't make it." He replied, "We'll try to do better." And for once, she didn't feel like a ghost inside someone else's story. That night, as they sat beneath a sky full of indifferent stars, she rolled the bullet he'd given her between her fingers. Still planning to use this on yourself? Malachi didn't look over. Only if I forget who I'm trying to become. She held it to the firelight, watched it gleam. What if someone else remembers for you? He tilted his head. You volunteering? She tossed the bullet gently. He caught it midair. I don't carry much, she said, but I've got room for that. The next morning they reached a small outpost, one saloon, one stable, a general store run by a man with 2 teeth and 1 eye worse than Malachi's. They bought beans, ammunition, dried fruit. The shopkeeper tried to sell Mercy a bonnet. She didn't buy it. Malachi watched her the whole time. Not close, not possessive, just steady, like he was keeping a record of how she moved through the world now. When they left, he said, You don't walk like someone waiting to be led anymore. She looked at him. And you don't watch like someone waiting to leave? They both smiled. Just barely. Later that day, he told her the truth. About the eye, about the boy, about the fire and the card game, and the way he let the man go, because revenge started to taste like rot. She listened without blinking, and when he finished, she said, You've still got 1 eye left. He nodded. That's all I need. She touched his sleeve. Then keep watching. The sky had just begun to bleed peach and lavender when Mercy stood beside the gelding, hand flat against its flank, eyes on the empty trail ahead. It was the first time she asked for anything since they met. I need a horse, she said. Tomorrow before dawn. Malachi didn't look up from where he was cleaning his rifle. You plan on going alone? I wasn't planning on staying. He nodded, slow, thoughtful. South? South. They didn't speak for a while after that. He finished his work, reassembled the rifle with the quiet rhythm of someone who'd done it 1,000 times. When he finally looked at her, the dying fire cast his good eye gold. You know what's across that line? Mercy stepped away from the horse. Not sure I care anymore. You should. She sat down on the rock beside him, close enough that their boots touched. I've crossed worse things, she said. Men's boundaries, family expectations. The distance between what I want and what I'm told I deserve. That's not a map. No, she agreed. It's a memory, and it's the only one that's mine. He studied her face for a long moment. Name like yours don't belong in the borderlands. She smirked. You still don't know what kind of name it is. He lifted an eyebrow. Mercy Talbot. Sounds like a preacher's daughter. She shrugged. More like a banker's disappointment. Then she tilted her head. You gonna tell me yours? I already did. No, she said. You told me what you were called. That's not the same. Malachi stood, walked to the edge of their camp, where the scrub opened into a wide flat of moon-pale desert. He stood there for a long time, arms crossed, the weight of something old pressing down on his spine. Then he said, You want the name I had before the war, or the one I kept after? Mercy joined him, coat pulled tight against the wind. Whichever one you still answer to when you're scared. He looked down. My mother called me Elam. She repeated it softly. Elam. That died with her. And Malachi? He turned. That one I earned. She waited. He finally said, Wasn't a good man when I took it. Don't know if I'm one now. But it's the one I chose. She nodded. Then that's the one I'll remember. They didn't sleep much that night. He sharpened his knife. She watched the moon pass overhead. Once she reached out and brushed her fingers across the back of his hand. He didn't flinch, but he didn't look either. Not because he didn't want to, because looking would have meant admitting what was already rising between them, quiet as smoke, real as breath. At dawn, the horse was ready. Malachi had saddled it himself, packed dried food, half a canteen, a coil of rope, and a small wrapped bundle of bullets. Mercy stood beside it, one hand on the horn, the other gripping the reins. She turned to him. "You coming?" He didn't answer. She waited. "You told me once," she said, "that you gave up your eye in a fight that wasn't yours." He nodded. "Maybe it's time you started picking different fights." Malachi crossed his arms. "You're not a cause." "No," she said, "but I might be the first thing in a long time that didn't leave you." That hit somewhere deep. He stepped closer. "You ride hard," he said. "You'll make the border by nightfall." "I know." "You cross," he added. "You're not coming back." She looked him square in the face. "Do you want me to come back?" His mouth moved, but no words came out. So instead, he pulled something from his coat. A thin strip of cloth, faded blue with a single stitch of red at one corner. She took it. "What is it?" "My mother's." "What do you want me to do with it?" "Keep it," he said, "in case someone ever makes you forget you had a place to come back to." Mercy mounted the horse, sat tall. He stepped back. "You stay one more night," he said. "You'll never leave." She smiled, slow and tired. "You say that like it's a threat. I say it like it's the truth." She didn't ride south. Not that day. She stayed. One more night. And when she woke in the middle of it, heart pounding from a dream she couldn't remember, she found him sitting by the fire, rifle across his knees watching the hills. Still, silent, steady, watching only her. They came at sunrise, not charging, not shouting, just four men on horses too clean for the trail and expressions too sure for strangers. Malachi saw them before the second coffee boil. He didn't move, just poured a second tin, left it steaming on the flat rock by the fire and said, "They've found us." Mercy looked up from the saddle strap she was mending. "How many?" "4. Maybe 5 if they've got a scout we can't see." She set the leather down. "How long?" "They'll be inside shouting distance in 20 minutes. Mercy stood, didn't ask if they were running. She knew the answer. They had built no walls, no shelter, just that narrow valley where the canyon funneled riders one by one if they came straight. Malachi was already walking the perimeter, quiet, efficient, setting a trip rope across a boulder, covering the fire pit, checking the rounds in his belt. He didn't speak unless necessary, but he wasn't alone in the work. Mercy followed him, carrying what needed carrying, sharpening a second knife, untying the dress bundle and wrapping it around the ammunition. If it was going to be ruined, it might as well do something useful before it went. When he turned and saw that, he paused. "You sure?" She didn't answer with words, just nodded once. 15 minutes later, they came into view, one at the front, tall, pale mustache, suit jacket like he wanted to be mistaken for someone official. Behind him, 2 younger men, one laughing too much, the other scanning the rocks like he thought he'd get shot just for looking wrong. And last, Royce Benedict. Royce didn't look mad, or heartbroken, or even tired. He looked amused, like this had become a game, and he always played to win. Malachi stood in the center of the trail, rifle lowered but loaded, hat pulled low, stance like a man who'd already counted how many bullets he was willing to use and how many he wasn't. Mercy stood behind him, not hiding, just choosing her moment. Royce pulled his horse to a slow stop, looked around. "Well now," he drawled, "a man with a gun and a girl with guts." He took off his gloves finger by finger. "Miss Talbot, you've caused quite the mess." She didn't flinch, didn't speak. So he turned to Malachi. "And you, I suppose you think you found some cause to die for?" Malachi said nothing, just blinked once with the good eye. Royce smirked. "You gonna let her shoot for herself?" "If I need to," Malachi replied. "I won't shoot twice." That changed the air. Royce's smile faded. He nodded once to the man beside him. Bring her. The younger one spurred his horse forward. But the moment his boot cleared the stirrup, Malachi moved. One shot. Clean. Right leg. The rider screamed, hit the dust, clutching his thigh. Royce's horse reared. The others spread. But Malachi was already behind a rock, reloading, eyes clear. The second man tried to circle wide. Mercy stood now, shotgun raised. Her finger didn't tremble. The man saw it and turned his horse before she had to prove it. Royce stayed put, didn't raise his voice, didn't fire, just waited. When silence returned, he said, "You can't hold her forever." Malachi stood, not trying to. "Then why not step aside?" "Because you don't want her back," Malachi said. "You want her still." Royce's jaw tightened. "She's mine." "No," Mercy called. "I was never yours. You just named me before I could speak." Royce didn't look at her, didn't acknowledge the wound. He turned his horse. But before he left, he said, "You made a choice, Miss Talbot. Just don't expect anyone else to live with it." Malachi stepped forward. "She's not asking anyone else to." They didn't chase them, didn't fire another round, didn't need to, because the men who came to drag her back found something they hadn't expected. A man who'd lost half his sight and still never missed. That night she sat beside him, unwrapping the dress. The bullet had torn through the silk. The pearls were scattered like teeth. She stared at it a long time, then fed it to the fire. Malachi watched her. "I'm sorry," he said. "For what?" "For not stopping them sooner." She looked at him. "You didn't stop them." He hesitated. "You ended them." She leaned into his shoulder. He didn't pull away. And for the first time when she closed her eyes, she didn't dream of the altar, or the ride, or the gunfire. She dreamed of a porch somewhere warm, a slow chair, a coat hung on a nail, and one good eye watching the trail, waiting for nothing except peace. The morning after the standoff, the sky stretched wide and clean. The sun rose quiet over the ridges, as if reluctant to disturb anything that had finally gone still. Mercy stood at the edge of the ashes. The dress, what was left of it, had burned through the night. Only a few threads clung to blackened buttons, curled like dead petals at the bottom of the fire ring. The smoke had smelled like silk and endings. Malachi didn't speak when he approached. He just handed her a tin cup, coffee, dark as midnight, and stood beside her, watching the horizon. "They won't come back," he said. "No," she agreed. "Not for me." He took a sip. "Then what now?" She didn't answer right away, because she didn't know. They packed slow that morning, not like people in a hurry to get anywhere, more like people who had finally outrun something and didn't quite know how to stop moving. Malachi cleaned his rifle, but didn't reload it. Mercy rewrapped the bullet he'd given her and slid it into her coat pocket. They didn't speak of leaving, but they didn't speak of staying either, until the road forked. One trail south, toward the border. One trail west, toward nowhere in particular. Mercy's horse pawed the dirt. Malachi stood beside his, adjusting the cinch. "You heading for the line?" She studied the dust, the way it lifted off the ridge like breath. "I was," she said, "but maybe what I needed wasn't across it." "You think it's behind you?" She looked at him. "Number, I think it's beside me." They took the western trail. No destination, just forward. And at the end of the second day, they found it. A shuttered trading post with a tin roof and a hand-painted sign that read simply, "Store sometimes." The windows were cracked. The steps sagged. The roof leaked on one corner. Malachi dismounted, walked a slow circle around the building. Mercy crossed her arms. "You thinking what I'm thinking?" He nodded. "We fix it. It might hold." "Might," she said. "You staying long enough to find out?" He paused, then, "You?" She walked up the porch, tested the boards under her boots. They groaned but didn't give. She looked over her shoulder. "I'm tired of crossing thing," she said. "Lines, borders, graves. I'd rather build something." He took off his hat, ran a hand through his hair. "I don't know how to build much." "You knew how to stand still," she said. "That's something." They started the next morning, hammered new planks, removed broken shelves, swept years of dust from corners no one had entered since the war. He fixed the windows. She patched the roof. They took turns cooking. No one said what they were doing exactly. But a month later, when a stranger passed through and asked if the store was open, Mercy had said yes without thinking. They sold flour, ammo, coffee, rope. And when a young woman came through with eyes full of panic and a suitcase that rattled when she moved, Mercy gave her a place to sleep. No questions, only shelter. Malachi never took off the patch, but he stopped looking away when she was near. He sat closer at meals, laughed once, quietly, when she threatened to shoot a rat that had stolen part of a biscuit. And one evening, as the wind rustled the porch like memory, he handed her a piece of wood. Her name was carved into it, Mercy Talbot, not as a brand, but as an offering. Underneath, he'd carved his own, Malachi Voss, side by side. She held it like a thing that might vanish. "You didn't ask," he shrugged. "Didn't seem like it needed saying." "It doesn't," she said, "but it means something that you did." He nodded. She leaned forward, and for the first time she kissed him. Not hard, not desperate, just enough to say, "I see you, and I'm still here." They never put up a sign out front. Didn't need to. Word got around. There's a place west of the river, run by a woman who used to be a bride, and a man who once gave up his name, but never his aim. They don't ask where you came from, just whether you're tired, and if you're willing to help patch the roof. Mercy never crossed the border. She drew a new one, and on the right side of it, there was a porch and a man who never left when it got quiet. She didn't ride off into the sunset. He didn't kneel with a ring. There were no church bells, no last gunfights, no crowds clapping when they kissed. Just two people, one running, one waiting, who met in the silence between lives. And when the world expected them to keep moving, they stayed. Not because it was safe, but because for the first time, neither of them was afraid to be seen. She didn't need to cross a border to become someone new. She just needed someone who wouldn't look away when she stopped pretending to be small. And he didn't need to be forgiven for the things he'd done. He only needed a place where his stillness could finally mean peace, not punishment. Did their story find something in you too? Tell us, what moment lingered after the dust settled? And where in the world are you watching from tonight? We read every comment,